that. No, hopefully, people will go and watch his performance.
Yeah. I think it'll be a show to watch
Yeah,
for sure.
definitely.
So let's begin our show. When most people think of domestic abuse, the first thing that comes to mind is likely verbal abuse and physical assault. But research shows that financial abuse occurs just as frequently in unhealthy relationships as other forms of abuse. So, in fact, a study by the Center of Financial Security found that 99% of domestic violence cases also involved financial abuse. Additionally, financial abuse is often the first sign of dating violence and domestic abuse. Consequently, knowing how to identify financial abuse is critical to your safety and security. So today we are joined by Sahar Naqvi from Daya Houston, which is a Houston-based nonprofit organization whose mission is to empower South Asian survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence and with culturally specific services. So welcome, Sahar.
Thank
How
you
are
so
you?
much. I am well.
We are
Thank you
so delighted
much.
to have you on Chai Time.
Well, I am grateful for the opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah, you guys have been great community partners, and we love you at Daya. So.
Tell us more. No, I'm kidding. Who doesn't like to hear their tarif? Come on.
That was good.
I can sit here all day, right? But no, thank you so much for joining us. And we really appreciate the partnership that we have. And
Absolutely.
through you and through us, we're all able to connect so many different individuals that are going through certain situations. And some might even be going through financial abuse. So let's get into that. What exactly is financial abuse?
Okay, so financial abuse is a part of the puzzle that we like to call the most integral part of abuse cycle.
Yeah.
Right? When somebody's capacity is limited to accessing, or their freedom is, limited, accessing their bank accounts, any financial tools by coercive control. Okay. So a perpetrator, an abuser, whatever you want to call it, is limiting somebody else's choice and freedom to access money, bank accounts, credit cards, loans, what have you. That's what basically financial abuse is.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. So what are some warning signs and red flags that one should look for regarding financial abuse?
Oh, wow. And there are
I'm
many.
sure, yeah.
We can begin with the most basic, not having access to your own money. Often what we have seen in our work is, even for our clients and the larger community, what happens is that people are working, okay, but they don't have their own bank account, or they're not allowed access to money of their own money through the joint bank account. So that's the most basic of, how this thing happens, the warning signs. And it gets complicated. Warning signs can be, a partner saying that they want to take a loan out, like they're basically controlling your actions and your decisions, saying that, they're going to take a loan out on your social security number or on your name, on your credit, and not informing you. So that's fraud.
Yeah.
Or coercive control or coercive debt, which is basically taking out loans on your name, notifying you, but forcing you to agree to the terms and conditions.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And these are more complicated. So as the financial instruments get more complicated, the situation gets more complicated. And obviously, there are laws that protect. Now we have laws. Actually, in September 2021, Texas passed a bill that basically broadened the definition of identity theft, and that included domestic violence survivors. And that was very important because when we talk about coercive debt, which is a very sort of powerful tool used in our community, it gives way for survivors to make a case for themselves when they're filing for divorce, when they're trying to separate, when they're having, making decisions on custody and finances for future.
Oh, wow. I mean, you would never think that when you're in a relationship, it's always a team, right? This is the way that I mean, especially in the Indian community, that's how, or Desi community, you are brought to, okay, whatever your husband says, you do. And you don't ask questions. But no, you should ask questions.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Especially when it comes to like finances and things. And I believe in everything, it should be a team effort. But you just don't realize that these things can also be considered financial abuse, because you're just like, okay, whatever he says, let's just go ahead with the flow.
But financial abuse is a part of the larger sort of abuse pattern, right? So financial abuse never just exists in isolation, right? So there's sometimes physical abuse, there's emotional abuse. Oftentimes there's emotional and financial abuse, very like intricately involved, right? So people will they will insert control over your lives, making decisions based on what they want as opposed to what you want. So it's the freedom of choice.
Control.
Absolutely. And abuse as it is that control and power wheel that we talk about in our sort of field, that's sort of lopsided. Right? So any good relationship, the power and control is shared. And that's what a healthy relationship looks like. However, in abusive relationship, the power and control is always on one partner as opposed to the other partner feeling trapped.
Makes sense. Wow. So what are some of the most common forms of financial abuse that exists for South Asian survivors of abuse?
Not having bank accounts of their own. A lot of our clients, unfortunately, when we talk to, they'll say, oh, my husband does all the bills. He pays everything. I don't know how much my mortgage is or what my rent is. I don't know where we get our groceries from. I don't know how much our groceries are. These are like small little things that if we increased our interaction and education, that it can be overcome. But it's working with these sort of survivors and learning from them, that we come up with a plan and as an organization address these issues. Housing is a big tool to exert control on somebody else.
Oh, wow. Okay, so do you think that immigrants are at a greater risk for financial abuse?
Absolutely.
And how so?
Absolutely. Any vulnerable population, new to the country, don't know their rights, don't have access to information, or if their access to information is taken away from them, is more than likely to have these sort of abuses, acted upon them. And immigrants are no exception to that. We are an immigrant community, and we bring great ideas and rich culture to America, and that's great. But with that, we also bring a lot of not so great ideas, especially when it comes to gender roles, and when it comes to abuse and what is abuse and how to exercise certain power in a relationship, in a healthy relationship. And this is not exclusive to America, right? It is worldwide. According to a statistic, like 1 in 3 women, have been victims of domestic abuse. And for financial abuse, the statistic is practically the same. 1 in 4 men, by the way, are affected by abuse as well. So it's not just definitely gender based, but there are also men who are affected by it. So this is something that's mind-boggling. Every 4th person you see, or every 3rd person you see out on the street, 1 person out of that. Like, imagine that, and you're like, when you start educating yourself about this, you really start assessing your own relationships and the relationships around you, and you say that this is what's wrong, this is what's wrong, this is what's wrong. And that in itself can be a very daunting thing. But as a community, it's a wake-up call. If we recognize the signs, then we can think about the solutions.
And I always think back to, like, whatever your kids see, they mimic that.
Oh, yeah.
So if they're in that household, in that environment, and they're seeing that dad is taking the control of everything, or mom is taking control of everything, then that's what they're going to mimic in their own lives, right? When they're older adults.
Yes, absolutely. But we cannot forget that children are disproportionately affected by these things.
Yes.
Because when they're little, their development is their intellectual development and other kinds of
Yes.
physical development is also affected by what they're going through. Because remember, they're also going through trauma. So it's not just the victim or the survivor, but the people around the survivor are also, and oftentimes these are children.
Yeah.
So it's not just that it's something abstract that's going to happen in the future. It's happening now in their brains and in their ability to become healthy adults, healthy human beings.
Wow. We never think of it that way. So how does financial control, or shall we say financial abuse, play into broader pattern of domestic violence? Broader.
Yeah. As I said, financial abuse is a piece of the puzzle that's extremely integral, but it's we have to look at abuse holistically, right? It's the pattern of abuse and power and control in a relationship that is literally lopsided. That's not allowing the other partner some freedom and choices that they have as a human being, right? So that fits right in the whole abuse cycle.
Yeah.
Now, there is something. So we're talking about financial abuse, but then there's economic abuse. Economic abuse is really sort of like the holistic term that houses in financial abuse. So financial abuse, when we talk about money or credit cards, like financial instruments, but economic abuse is a broader term that also deals with housing, groceries, food access, medical access, things like that.
Yeah.
Right? Because oftentimes what we see in our work is that those are also limited to exercise control by the perpetrator, right? So if, let's say, X, Y, and Z got divorced and they're fighting a custody battle, right? Not having proper housing is a big decision, right? And then when they go into, let's say, court, mediation, whatever, that's one of the things that the judge will look into and say, okay, does the child have safe housing?
Yeah.
And if the access is already cut off, the survivor never had money, never had built credit or good credit, or has a really bad credit,
right,
which was purposely done by the perpetrator, then what kind of housing is available?
Yeah, nothing.
Right?
Yeah.
So there are very limited choices. And housing is the basic thing, right? Then we come to food access, right? As an immigrant community, a lot of us may not be citizens, may not be green card holders, right?
Yep.
So we wouldn't qualify for SNAP benefits,
No.
we wouldn't qualify for state benefits. So where are some things, resources that we go to get access to food?
Yeah.
And this is something that we require every day to function.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and again, this is all sort of the umbrella of economic abuse.
Oh, wow. I never thought of it in such a big, broader.
Yeah. I'm looking at your face.
Yeah,
it's
it's like a big shock.
Mind-boggling.
Wow, yeah.
I'm so glad that you have this expression because it allows me the opportunity to not only educate you, but to educate our wider community, because it's so important.
Yes.
We think about these things.
Yeah.
Right? Because this is happening in our community.
Yeah. It's
We
sad, but true.
very, very proudly service the South Asian immigrant community, and we would love to have a time where our services are not needed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's not happening.
Wow. I mean, these are basic necessities that you would not think that a person would not have access to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's sad.
Yeah, it is sad. It's absolutely sad, but there are ways around it.
Yes.
I mean, having worked with survivors, I can tell you they're the most resilient, brilliant people.
Yeah.
Oftentimes they themselves forget their own strengths, and that's okay. As an advocate, as a case manager, that is what my job is,
Yeah.
right? I'm not a counselor, I do not counsel. However, with the help of a counselor, they can heal from traumas
Yes.
that are actively going on in their lives, right? But we work together, make a strategic safety plan, and that's what we call safety planning. When somebody calls, we assess them for needs and say, okay, what are your short term, long term needs? Let's talk about these things.
Yeah.
And one by one, we go with everything, on the plan.
Wow. Okay, so what are some good first steps for someone facing financial abuse?
I would say reach out to an organization that can help you. Before that, if you have a safe person who you can communicate with, talk to in a confidential manner, reach out to them and say, this is what's happening to me. I heard so and so on the Bang radio, and Sahar was talking about financial abuse, and I was hearing what she was talking about, and I think this is what's happening to me. Can I talk to you? And for the larger community, please be available for anyone and everyone who is coming up to you and saying these things, because that's the most important thing, right? When we provide a safe space for anyone to come up to us and talk to us regarding what's going on in their lives, that's the first step of them reaching out for help. And educate ourselves, and providing safe spaces, and then linking them with organizations like Daya, through our hotline, through our website, dayahouston.org, and just say that contact a case manager, call the hotline.
While you're on that, why don't you give the phone number as well?
Sure, it's 713-981-7645. I'm just going to confirm that, but I'm pretty sure that that's what it is. Yeah, 981-7645. So
and then also is there a website?
dayahouston.org.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are, I had a good question here. What are some ways abusers exploit survivors?
Oh. So I'm going to make it relevant to our community, and I'll give you an example. We often have, people who call, like clients who call, and they say that I didn't know when I was marrying my husband in India, in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, wherever, that I was going to be brought, and my social security number, my credit, my name was going to be used for SBA loans, for creditors, for taking out business loans, for like millions of dollars.
Oh
so
my.
People have gone back to X, Y, and Z country, married somebody exactly with the intent to bring them here to exploit them through financial abuse.
Wow.
That's just scenario one. So yeah.
That is crazy. So what steps do you recommend a person facing taking in order to regain financial independence?
I would say that, do you have a safe bank account? Assess whether you have an access to, when I say safe bank account, what I mean is that do you have access to your own money through your own free will? Are you being asked to explain your expenditure? Are you being asked for receipts? Oh, where did you go? How much did you buy of so and so? Oh, where's the change? All of that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and this is like the basic step to assess yourself and say, do I have access to my money, right? And then, so there is restriction of financial control, and then there is exploitation of financial control, which all comes under financial abuse, right? So you have to sort of assess your own restriction limits. If I was to go out today and get myself some ice cream and buy myself a bag because I wanted to, being reasonable, right? am I going to go home? Am I going to go home and explain myself to somebody? And that's sort of the litmus test of what's going on here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Please tell us about it.
Sure. So our economic empowerment program is basically an assessment of our clients' sort of finances, their education, and what does where exactly is client in the present, and where do they want to be in the future, and what tools can we provide them to sort of giving access to education or resources or other partner organizations, that will sort of develop and a journey of empowerment for them, right? And so what last year we were able to do quite a few webinars. Everything was virtual, so we did everything virtually, where we brought community partners talking about financial tools and talking about banking and credit scores, and what is a credit score, or how to open a bank account, what is the difference between checking and savings. So we had a series of webinars at Daya where we engaged community partners, and it was open to everybody, the larger community, including the survivors. Sort of our own approach to reaching out to these survivors, silent survivors is what we like to call them, because there are so many people out there who either are not aware of what's going on with them, or they don't have access to information and education, right? Or they just don't know that they can actually call Daya or any other organization, right?
Yeah.
So our aim was, through these webinars, our aim was to reach the larger community and create a dialogue where our survivors are sort of interested in these sort of basic, very, elementary sort of concepts of financial education that will give them sort of like a step ladder to something bigger.
Right.
I want to buy a house, or I would like to save for my child's education, or I would like to one day sign up for a life insurance. These are very big, lofty goals for somebody who has never been given access to a credit card, or here's a $20 bill.
Wow.
Okay?
Yeah.
So our sort of the economic empowerment program deals with education outreach, but also direct client services. When we assess them for housing. We assess them for if they need financial assistance, given that we have that at that time. Do they need access to food? Often we have a food pantry that is very generously donated by the larger community. People will call us, like grocery stores. They see grocery stores will call us and say, hey, we have access amount of the X, Y, and Z. And, our advocates will facilitate where it's either dropped off or picked up, and it's stored at our facility and our clients have access to that. So I always encourage my clients to sort of make an assessment of what their current situation is, as far as food is concerned, as far as accommodation. Do you need rental support? Do you need access or information to state benefits that you may qualify for, or rental assistance that you may qualify through the city of Houston? There are many, many resources out there. It's just creating this empowerment program sort of creates a holistic approach to giving this survivor a way to empower themselves in the future, and immediately.
Okay. Well, I am interested in knowing some stories.
Sure.
Yeah, any anonymous stories you could share with us?
Sure. There are many stories, and some are successful, some are not. But one that comes to my mind is a survivor who is from Pakistan. This is somebody married to somebody who is notable in the community, is what I want to say.
Okay.
So when she reached out to us, she had strong reservations about privacy. Right? And rightly so.
Right, yeah.
Because if she had reached out to other community partners, there was a possibility of her sort of blowing her own cover, right? My husband is so and so. And at first, she was so hesitant that she didn't even give us her like correct name.
Oh, wow.
And it was through building trust over the years that I've worked at Daya that I've come to know who this person is, who the perpetrator is. And yes, he is notable, but at the same time, it's a very shady record, a very shady financial record. So this person was already divorced, went to Pakistan, got married, and brought this lady here.
Yeah.
And at first, didn't allow her to work. She said she wanted to go to school, didn't allow her to go to school.
Wow, the word allow, that just doesn't
allow.
Like,
Yes, exactly. And that shows you how much of this choice and this freedom is taken away.
Yeah.
Like there is no agency of your own anymore, right?
Yeah.
So her limit, like this person's sort of idea was to limit her and cut her from all support system. So they used to live in another city. She made friends and she started telling people what's going on. This person, the husband, found out and actually made her come to Houston because she was getting support there. He started suspecting that people were starting to find out what was really going on. And also because he didn't want anybody helping her. So often abusers will do that. They will cut off support based on their own sort of idea of power and control. If I am going to lose control in a certain situation, then I'm not going to allow you to have access to X, Y, and Z. So not only are you working, you don't have access to your own money, or you're not allowed to work at all. So you're basically a prisoner within your own home.
Yeah.
And your primary job is to take care of the mother-in-law, or take care of the ex-wife's kids, or take care of the household. You cook and clean and look pretty when I come home.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and this is where she called me.
Yeah.
And, and again, this is a complicated situation because this person, because he's so notable, has taken out millions of dollars of SBA loans and business loans through private lenders by coercion on this lady's name, to the point where she has no bank account. And I remember having a conversation with her one day saying, X, Y, and Z, do you know how to open a bank account? And her answer was, if I open a bank account, he has put alert on my credit. My concern is it going to go to him and say, so-and-so ran my credit? And I had to go back and do research. If banks pull like normal credit or not. They don't, by the way. They don't.
Yeah.
There's another crediting system. They do pull something. It's not the normal crediting system. It's a consumer law, which is a totally different thing. But it is reported somewhere. And we just don't know if this person is savvy enough or have enough information or is manipulative enough to have these sort of controls everywhere. And this is all invisible. This is what makes it so hard to prove in a court of law, let alone education and all of that. Let's just forget about all of that. Let's talk about the law. This is what's so hard to sort of prove in a court of law. When you go for a custody battle or you're talking about debts within a divorce settlement, it's very hard to prove that. And that is where advocacy and outreach comes into play, because a lot of it is prevention.
Yeah.
Right? But then there are tools, as I said. Texas did pass this law last year in September that sort of broadens the definition of identity theft to include survivors, and that's a big step. But that hasn't come easily.
Yeah.
A lot of people like me who have been doing this thing for years have advocated on the policy level.
Yeah.
Right. And one of them is Dr. Nusrat Amin, our legal advocate, and she's been great at advocacy with these sort of things. So, and it is through people like Dr. Nusrat Amin and other community partners who are making sort of policy, advocating on policy level, so that these legislative changes are brought on the most basic.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So then what happened with this lady?
Oh, so it's an ongoing thing.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah. Again, this is a complicated situation.
Yes.
And I do believe that she will come out of it.
Yes.
If I didn't, I don't think I would be working in this field.
Yeah.
Hope is an extremely important thing to cling on to.
Yes.
More than that, resiliency and the client's ability to just sort of say, you know what, I have had enough.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're tenacious, and I love that about them. I learn from my clients, and I learn from her. And this particular case, I have sort of like a finance background. I used to work for a credit union and a mortgage bank a long time ago, but that sort of background gave me the ability to translate that knowledge into what I do today.
Yeah.
And it is people like her who are coming up to me, challenging, saying the way this finance industry is, it's not set up for me. And I am the most vulnerable of people. You guys are not servicing me. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I do hope everything works out for her.
Yes,
and like you said, hope is a very powerful thing, and it will. It
Yes.
will. Yes,
Yes.
positive affirmation.
Yes.
Love it. So, how do finances look in healthy relationship? How should one address conflicts around finances, as that could be a potential source of stress in a relationship?
Like everything else,
Yeah.
communication.
Yeah. The key.
Advocating for yourself.
Yeah.
Creating boundaries. You cannot start a relationship based on false ideas and welcoming false ideals.
Yeah.
Okay? If somebody has bad credit, please let your partner know I have bad credit.
Yeah.
So you can regroup, plan. We all have made mistakes.
Yeah.
It's okay, right? But in order to have an open communication and a healthy relationship and a healthy financial relationship,
Yeah.
that's the most important thing,
Absolutely.
right? So if my money is going in a separate bank account while I contribute to whatever amount in the joint bank account, the other person do not have access to my money.
Yeah.
That's my money.
Yeah.
And I will assert that boundary, right? Now, obviously, if there's an emergency, something is going on, let's have a discussion. Where else can we pull? We cannot be unreasonable,
Absolutely. Yeah.
but how you said, it's a team,
Yes.
right? When you are in a team, 2, 3 people, however many,
Yeah.
right? A husband and a wife, partners, whatever you want to call it, with kids or no kids, dogs, cats, everything else, there are financial obligations. So it is very important to have honest discussions about your current finances before you get into a relationship.
True.
I wouldn't say that
Yeah.
that should be your first question. You're going on a blind date and be like, okay, what's your credit score?
Yeah.
And the other person like 620 by. We don't want to do
Yeah.
that. But when you are at a comfort level that you can have
Yes.
this conversation, please do.
Yeah. It is important.
There's no avoiding it. It
Yeah.
just gets worse if you
Yeah.
avoid it.
That is true. That is true. So if you know someone who is facing financial abuse, what are some ways you can support them?
The best way, here's what I would say. The larger community can support them by, again, providing a safe space, giving them a surety that what they say is confidential.
Yeah.
Giving them a surety that what stays between them. Like privacy is very important. And then giving them access to tools and resources. It's very easy to say, I think this is what's happening to you, or tell me more. You know, how are you feeling about this X, Y, and Z? Hey, so and so happened. My husband took my card or whatever. Okay, so tell me more.
Yeah.
Try not to give advices, please. Listen first.
Yeah.
And the best thing you can do is give them a phone number that gives them access to an expert who does this, who will be able to assess them and provide solutions that's based on their particular need. Okay, we can say, okay, call so and so auntie or wo kar dengi, and like, we don't want to do that.
No.
So and so auntie probably doesn't have the proper tools to give them
Exactly.
advices on finances.
Yes.
Right. So let's think about this in a way that we are strengthening the pillars of this community to reach out to silent survivors and giving room to their voice. Okay.
Yes.
Where we create safe spaces within our houses and our hearts and minds that people can come and talk to us.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of quickly Googling, domestic violence agencies or South Asian domestic violence agencies or dayahouston.org, and saying, hey, you will remain anonymous. It's okay. It's confidential.
Yeah.
Reach out. This is the phone number, or through their website if you don't want to. And we are very proud to say Daya has been integral part of providing language services to our clients. A lot of our clients do not speak English, and that's completely okay. A language should not be your barrier towards empowerment, right?
Yes.
And we are hoping, and we do actually advocate for language access in all sort of realms of our own field.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people are just hesitant. Even people who can speak like elementary English are hesitant.
Yeah.
Hey, I've never talked to somebody about this. Being a safe person requires that you actively listen and reflect on what's being said.
Yeah.
And that's why I said don't give advices, right? Because reflecting means that they know that you're actively listening. You're not providing solutions because you're not equipped, and that is okay, right?
Yeah.
And acknowledging that I have never been in this situation, but I know what trauma is.
Yeah.
I've been through X, Y, and Z, but I know what trauma is. I may not know exactly what situation you are in, but you know what? I do have a computer and Google. I can search and I can provide you the information. Right?
Yeah, and I'd like to add that also we should have conversations, normalize it amongst our friends.
Yeah.
We have these outings, we go out with our friends, and we always talk about light subjects. But sometimes it is important to have those conversations and make it normal, because you never know a friend of a friend is going through. And maybe that friend can help the other friend.
Yeah.
So it becomes like a ripple effect. Mm-hmm. So having those conversations, not just everything we just have to, as human beings, we have to have more empathy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we have to do that, because many of us don't even realize, even there could be us as well, that we don't realize we are going through financial abuse.
Yeah.
And personally, we could be going through that. But without those conversations, without being educated, without the knowledge, where do we go then, right?
Yeah.
Then we are just leading that life, basically.
Yeah.
So that's about it. So as a community, ask the questions. Be bold enough to get out of your bubble.
Yeah.
To get out of that, talk about it.
Yeah.
It's not taboo anymore. It's not a stigma anymore. And that is what we have to encourage each other to do. I think that's so important as steps towards improving lives.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so true.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, and I'm a bit idealistic when it comes to these things. Why else would I be working in this if I wasn't? I see it, like I vision where our community, somebody would write a play based on this.
Yeah.
Somebody would write poetry based on this. Somebody would write about their own experience and publish a book. Somebody would say, okay, as a community, let's come together and create financial tools to benefit. And I know this is hard, and I know there's so many compliances coming from a finance background. Oh my God, red tape, all of that. But trust me, we do it. Has anybody ever heard of a committee? Nobody. A committee is basically a desi auntie's way of saving.
Ah.
My mom used to do it in Pakistan, I remember. I do it here. This is like literally a bunch of ladies coming together saying that it's 12 of us, $100 a month is this much. And one person is going to get this, the whole thing.
Oh, like
month.
VC.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So we do have tools. It's not
Yeah.
like we don't have tools.
Yeah.
We have created our own sort of microfinancing thing.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
Muhammad Yunus is a product of Bangladesh and the economic crisis there, right?
Yeah.
He's the guru of microfinancing. Where else? We are very innovative people.
Yeah.
If we were to come and put our minds together and say, we don't want our community, facing this hardship, we can do it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I do want to add also previously when you mentioned like having your own personal account, that's nothing wrong with that.
No.
It's not being selfish, it's being smart.
Yes.
Absolutely, because like you said, many times we feel like, why are we doing this? Are we being selfish human beings? Are we being selfish just thinking about ourselves? But you gave a great point that, it's okay. You can have separately a joint account with your spouse, but have one for yourself too, because that itself builds you up.
Yeah.
It builds that confidence in you. You're able to do things then, like your way. It's okay as a family that we discuss things, we have discussions. But at the same time, sometimes we have to make that decision too. And we should be able to do that. Not thinking, okay, everything is joined, so it should be a joint decision.
Yeah.
But sometimes someone has to step up on the plate.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I totally agree with that when you're saying, because many times when you had mentioned about an account, many of us are thinking, oh my God, but that would be so wrong.
Yeah.
But not at all.
No.
It does not have to be
Yeah.
because you are in an abused relationship.
Yeah.
It is just as a normal relationship too. You can think about it. You can consider that.
Yeah.
If you are a working woman or not a working woman, you have all, you should do that.
Exactly.
And it is all your rights.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very true.
So thank you for that, Sahar.
You're welcome.
So I guess we are about time, but I have one more question.
Sure.
What are some ways we can start to educate our community about financial abuse?
What you guys are doing is a prime example of how we can do this. And another way is, our outreach director, Tisha Bedi, is always out with our, outreach coordinator, Pam, doing events for the community, going through, the massages and the gurdwaras and the temples and mandirs and saying, let us do a presentation, let us talk
Yeah.
about this, That's sort of an active way of engaging the community and saying that it's okay, normalizing how we talk about this, why we should talk about it, and providing a safe space for the silent survivor to come forward.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, and I'm very happy to say that we do receive calls from faith leaders. We do receive calls from Molanas. We do receive calls, from the head of the Gurdwara, because somebody will call and say, okay, so-and-so at the Gurdwara said, I can call you guys. And that's the most joyous moment.
Yeah.
Because the faith leaders understand their responsibility.
Yes.
Also, the faith leaders understand that there is something that needs to be done,
Yeah.
and they can provide that information. So our outreach team is always out there sort of doing community events, engaging the community. We, at Daya will have webinars,
Yeah.
whether it's financial or otherwise. Like every year we have brown bodies, not a contest, but this webinar that enables you to tell your story about your own body and how beautiful it is. These are ways to sort of engage community.
Yeah.
Right? And say that we welcome your voice, we welcome your input, and like the other, like I think last week we had a movie night.
Yeah.
Daya had a movie night. Okay, so this like light ways. It doesn't always have to be about abuse. It just has to be that we're providing safe space through various means, creative means, to say that the community can come to us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I love that. Unfortunately, we are out of time. I wish I could keep here for another hour or so and we could just continue talking about this. So, well, thank you, Sahar, for coming on our show. We really appreciate all the knowledge that you have passed on to our listeners. And hopefully, inshallah, soon we'll have you